The government shutdown was the best thing that ever happened to me. It showed me who my family really was. For my entire adult life, I had one job: to be the reliable son, the successful one, the one who went to college, got the brilliant engineering job at NASA, and sent money home without asking too many questions. My brother David had a different job: to be the charming one, the one with big dreams and empty pockets, the one who always needed a few hundred, then a few thousand, for a sure thing that never was. And I played my part perfectly. I was the family ATM, the stable pillar holding up my parents' pride and my brother's disastrous life choices. I told myself it was love. I told myself it was my duty. The day the government shut down was the day I learned I wasn't a pillar. I was the foundation they were actively dynamiting for the insurance money. It started like any other Tuesday. I was knee-deep in thermal shield schematics for the new Artemis mission lander. The kind of work that made me feel like a kid again, staring up at the stars. My phone buzzed on the desk. It was my mom. I already knew what the text would say before I read it. Mom, asterisk. Hi, sweetie. Hope you're having a good day. David has a really amazing opportunity, a new crypto mining setup. Just needs a little seed money to get the hardware. Anything you can spare would be a huge help. Love you, asterisk. I sighed, the familiar weight settling in my chest. It was always an amazing opportunity. Last month, it was an artisanal pickle business. Before that, it was reselling vintage sneakers. None of it ever panned out, and the seed money was never paid back. I looked at the complex equations on my monitor, the tangible proof of my hard work and dedication. This was what it was all for, right? To be able to provide. To make sure they were okay. I opened my banking app, transferred $2,000 to her account, and typed back a simple, "Sent, love you too." An hour later, my section chief called an all-hands meeting. The news hit us like a shockwave. Gridlock in Congress. No budget deal. As of midnight, the U.S. processed in 2 secs. Government would be in a full shutdown. All non-essential personnel, which included 90% of my department, were to be furloughed. Indefinitely. The room was a mix of gallows humor and genuine panic. People had mortgages, kids in college, medical bills. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. My salary, the bedrock of my life, and my family's was gone. Just like that. My fiancée, Jessica, met me at home. Her face was etched with worry. Jessica said, "Liam, what are we going to do? The wedding is only 4 months away." I pulled her into a hug, trying to project a confidence I didn't feel. I replied, "Hey, we'll be okay. We have the joint savings account. We've got a good cushion. It probably won't last more than a couple of weeks." She seemed to relax a little. That night, I called my parents to give them the news. I explained the furlough and told them gently that I'd have to tighten my belt. The money train was, for the foreseeable future, out of service. My dad answered the phone. Dad said, "A shutdown, huh? Well, that's just politics for you. Don't you worry about us, son. We'll be just fine. You just take care of yourself and Jessica." My mom got on the extension. Mom added, "He's right, honey. We are completely fine. You focus on you." I hung up, feeling a strange mix of relief and confusion. They were fine with it? No guilt trip? No passive-aggressive comments about David's opportunity? It was the easiest conversation about money I'd ever had with them. It felt wrong. Too easy. That should have been my first red flag. The first week of the shutdown was a blur of news reports and budget spreadsheets. I watched our savings account dwindle with automated payments and daily expenses. The big one was a $10,000 non-refundable deposit for our wedding venue, a payment we had scheduled months ago that just happened to hit now. I winced as I saw the balance drop. A few days later, I logged into our joint account to move some money around. My eyes scanned the transaction list and my heart stopped. A withdrawal, a massive one, $25,000. It was dated the day after the shutdown was announced. I hadn't made it. Jessica was the only other person with access. My mind raced. Was it an emergency? Did something happen to her family? The memo line attached to the transfer was just 2 words: the investment. I felt the blood drain from my face. It couldn't be. There was no way. Jessica was in the kitchen, humming along to the radio as she made coffee, the picture of domestic bliss. My hands were shaking as I walked in, holding my laptop. I said, my voice barely a whisper, "Jess, what is this?" She glanced at the screen, and for a split second, I saw a flash of panic in her eyes before it was replaced by a practiced, serene smile. Jessica said, "Oh, that. Honey, I was going to tell you. It's good news." I stared at her, my mind refusing to connect the dots. I asked, "Good news? Jess, that's $25,000, half of our emergency savings. Where did it go?" She took a sip of her coffee, her gaze unwavering. Jessica replied calmly, "I gave it to David." I felt the floor drop out from under me. I couldn't breathe. I said, You what? Why?" Jessica said, "For his investment, Liam, the crypto thing. Your mom told me it's a can't-miss deal. We'll double our money in 6 months, maybe less. I did it for us. I did it to help your family." Her words hung in the air, cold and sharp. She wasn't apologizing. She was justifying. She had taken our future, the money for our wedding, our safety net during my unemployment, and handed it to my black hole of a brother. And the worst part, the part that made my soul crack, was the way she said it like she had done me a favor. I replied, my voice trembling with a rage I had never felt before. "You did this with my mom, behind my back?" Jessica's smile finally faltered. A hard, defensive look replaced it. She said, "Don't be so dramatic, Liam. It was our money. I just finally decided to put it to good use instead of letting you just hand it out in little pieces. We're a team now. Your family is my family." I was helping. And that's when I saw it. The casual dismissal of my opinion. The seamless alliance with the very people who had been draining me for a decade. She wasn't my partner. She was one of them. The shutdown hadn't broken our finances. It had just revealed they were already gone, and I had no idea how deep the betrayal truly went. The argument that followed was a Category 5 hurricane in our pristine apartment. Words were thrown like furniture, accusations hurled like shattered glass. I was blindsided, not just by the act itself, but by the utter lack of remorse from Jessica. I yelled, "Our money? Jessica, that was my life savings, the down payment for a house. The in case of emergency fund. I just lost my job, and you gave it to the single most financially irresponsible person I know." Jessica fired back, her voice sharp and righteous. "Oh, so it's your time's money now? It's our money when you're playing the generous son, but it's your money when I try to make a smart move for our future? Your family needed help, Liam. It's what you do. I just did it more efficiently." Her logic was so twisted, so profoundly warped, that it left me breathless. She had absorbed my family's toxic narrative completely. Liam's money is community property. I was no longer a person. I was a resource to be managed. Fuming, I grabbed my keys and stormed out. I drove to my parents' house, the engine of my car roaring in harmony with the rage in my heart. I was going to get answers. I was going to get our money back. I found them in the living room with David. They were all laughing, looking at something on David's new, top-of-the-line laptop, a laptop I was sure I had paid for. The moment I walked in, the laughter died. My mom stood up, her face a mask of concern. Mom said, "Liam, what a surprise. Is everything okay?" I replied, my voice dangerously low. "No, Mom, nothing is okay. I want to know why you and Jessica went behind my back and took $25,000 from my savings account." David scoffed from the couch. David said, "Dude, relax. It's an investment. Jessica gets it. She sees the big picture. You're just too stuck in your 9-to-5 mindset." I turned my glare on him. I said, "The 9-to-5 that paid for your rent for the last 3 years? The one that paid for this laptop? That mindset, David?" My dad stepped forward, taking on his role as the placating, reasonable patriarch. Dad said, "Now, son, let's not get heated. We didn't mean to upset you. It was a time-sensitive opportunity. We knew you'd get bogged down in details and miss out. We were trying to help you build wealth." They were a united front, a chorus of gaslighting. They had taken my money and were now telling me it was for my own good. The sheer audacity of it was staggering. I felt like I was losing my mind. I pressed on, desperate for some crack in their wall of delusion. "Help me? You took my emergency fund while I'm unemployed. What were you thinking?" And that's when David, in his infinite arrogance, made the mistake that unraveled everything. David said with a smug grin, "Thinking we needed to get things moving on the family property. Can't let that just sit there." My dad shot him a look of pure fury. Dad snapped, "David, shut up." But it was too late. The words were out. I asked slowly, "The family property? What family property? What are you talking about?" My mom forced a laugh, waving her hand dismissively. Mom said, "Oh, it's just a little something your father and I have been looking into for our retirement. It's nothing, sweetie. David doesn't know what he's talking about." The lie was so blatant, so poorly constructed, that it was almost insulting. A secret. A big one. This wasn't about a single crypto investment anymore. This was something coordinated, something that had been going on for a long time. My life, my money, my future, it had all been tangled up in a web of their secrets. And I was only just beginning to pull at the threads. The shutdown dragged into its third, then its fourth week. Life became a nightmare. My savings were gone. I had to call our wedding caterer and cancel, losing the $5,000 deposit. Then the florist, then the band. Each call was a fresh wave of humiliation. Jessica offered no comfort. She grew colder, more distant, spending more time with my family than with me. She said one night, her voice devoid of emotion, "If you hadn't overreacted, maybe we could have figured this out. But you had to make it a war." Then, the letters started arriving. Credit card statements from banks I didn't use, with balances in the tens of thousands. Then, a letter from an auto lender about a luxury SUV I'd never seen. They were all in my name. My pristine credit, the one thing I had built so carefully over the years, was a smoldering crater. They hadn't just taken my cash, they had stolen my identity. I confronted Jessica, the stack of fraudulent bills in my hand. I asked her, "Did you know about this? Did you know they were using my name?" She wouldn't look at me. Jessica whispered, "They said they were making you an authorized user to build your credit profile." It was the weakest lie yet. She knew. She had to have known. The final blow came on a gray Friday morning. The mail carrier handed me a certified letter. It felt heavy in my hand, official and ominous. I tore it open, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm against my ribs. It was a notice of delinquency, a final warning before foreclosure proceedings. According to the bank, I was 3 months behind on mortgage payments for a property I didn't know I owned. My eyes scanned down the page, my vision blurring, until they landed on the address. My blood ran cold. It was an address in Lake Arrowhead, a wealthy resort town hours away, an address I recognized. It was the place my parents always rented for a week every summer, a trip they always claimed was a gift from a generous friend at my dad's old company. But the letter in my hand said I wasn't a renter, I was the owner, and I was about to lose it all. The drive to Lake Arrowhead was silent, except for the GPS and the frantic storm of thoughts in my head. Betrayal wasn't a strong enough word for what I was feeling. This was a demolition. They had taken my name, my credit, my future, and built a secret life on its ruins. All those years, I thought I was being a good son. I was just a mark. I found the house easily. It was a sprawling, beautiful A-frame cabin with a deck overlooking the water, far nicer than anything they could have afforded on their own. And parked in the driveway was a brand new metallic blue luxury SUV, the same one I was apparently paying for. I didn't knock. I used the key I found under the welcome mat, the one my mom had once told me about in case of emergencies. The irony was so thick I could choke on it. I walked into the sound of laughter and clinking glasses. My parents, my brother David, and Jessica were all there. They were sitting around a roaring fire, drinking wine, celebrating their new life, financed by the destruction of mine. They all froze when they saw me. Jessica's wine glass slipped from her hand, shattering on the stone hearth. My dad was the first to speak, his voice strained. Dad said, "Liam, what are you doing here? You should have called." I held up the foreclosure notice, my hand shaking with adrenaline. I replied, "I got a call from the bank. They tell me I own this place. They also tell me I'm about to lose it. So why don't you tell me what the hell is going on?" The dam of their deception finally broke. It all came out in a torrent of excuses and twisted justifications. For years they had been using me. It started small, a credit card here, a small loan there. They forged my signature, using my high salary and perfect credit score as a key to unlock a world they felt entitled to. The lake house wasn't a rental. They had bought it 3 years ago, in my name. The SUV was for David, an early birthday present. The $25,000 Jessica had given them wasn't for a crypto investment. It was to cover the delinquent mortgage payments they were hiding from me. My mother started to cry, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of frustration. Mom sobbed, "We did this for the family. We wanted to have something to show for ourselves, something to leave for you and David. Your name was just a tool, a means to an end. Why are you being so selfish?" Selfish. The word hit me with the force of a physical blow. I had sacrificed my youth, my own desires, my financial security, all for them. I had paid for everything, from their groceries to David's fantasies, and I was the selfish one. In that moment, standing in the house of lies that I had unknowingly paid for, staring at the faces of the people who had systematically dismantled my life, something inside me broke. It was the part of me that craved their approval, the part that believed their love was something I could earn if I just gave enough. It withered and died, and what was left was cold, hard, and clear. I looked at Jessica, her face pale with guilt. I said to her, my voice flat and empty, "Was any of it real?" She couldn't answer. She just stared at her feet. And I knew. I was part of the plan. The stable, high-earning fiancé who could be easily manipulated. The perfect mark. I turned around and walked out of the house without another word. The dark night of the soul is supposed to be a metaphor, but for me, it was a 2-hour drive down a mountain in the dead of night. I was financially ruined, emotionally hollowed out. I had lost my job, my savings, my fiancé, and my family all in the space of a month. I had nothing left, and in that nothingness, I found a strange kind of freedom. The freedom of a man with nothing left to lose. The next morning, I made 2 calls. The first was to the best fraud lawyer I could find. The second was to the local police department. I filed a report for identity theft, fraud, and forgery against my own parents and my brother. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. They were served with legal papers a week later. The screaming phone calls, the voicemails filled with curses and threats, the accusations that I was an ungrateful monster destroying the family. I listened to none of it. I blocked their numbers. The final confrontation happened at the lawyer's office. Jessica was there, subpoenaed as a witness. My family tried to play the victims, but the mountain of evidence, the forged signatures, the bank records, the credit reports, was undeniable. My mom screamed at me across the table. Mom shrieked, "After everything we did for you, we gave you life!" I finally looked at her, not with anger, but with a kind of weary pity. I said calmly, "You gave me life, yes, but you took everything else. We're done." The legal battle was ugly, and it cost me what little I had left. They were forced to sell the lake house and the SUV to start paying back the fraudulent debts. The criminal charges are still pending. Jessica and I, of course, were over. I heard through a mutual friend she moved back in with her parents. 6 months have passed. The government reopened weeks after my life imploded. A distant, ironic footnote to my personal apocalypse. My old job at NASA called, but I turned it down. There were too many ghosts there. I sold my apartment, packed 2 suitcases, and moved across the country. I work for a private aerospace startup now. The work is just as challenging, but it's mine. Sometimes, late at night, I look back on it all. The shutdown wasn't the cause of my problems. It was just the catalyst. It was the event that stopped the money flow and forced the termites out of the woodwork. It cost me everything I thought I wanted. But it gave me back the one thing I didn't know I had lost: myself. My phone doesn't buzz with requests for money anymore. It's quiet. The silence is peaceful. I'm broke. I'm starting over from scratch, and I've never been happier. I'm finally free.